Without truth, there can be no justice.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
Speak out. Ask those questions. Demand that truth.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of Truth is Justice. This week, we bring in the final part of the group discussion, and we're going to pretty much jump straight into it, but I wanted to quickly address 2 points. And the first point is, we received some feedback both directly and indirectly about how curious some people find it that we are devoting so much time and energy to this case. And this isn't just directed at myself or Atty or Ivan or the project as a whole, it's also directed at some of our contributors on our Facebook page and some of those that are helping us out behind the scenes. I find it curious that, on the one hand, some people think there is something suspicious or untoward about our involvement in addressing the facts of this case because of the level of our involvement, yet the same people don't find it curious or suspicious that others putting significant effort into fighting for Sandra's innocence are actually profiting from her case. I think about that for a minute because it doesn't really make sense. The financial motivations for others are significant, and that should at least make some people question whether the information they are receiving is fully accurate. And we made it clear from day one that we are not motivated by financial gains. We are simply focused on the truth, and the power of that is quite extraordinary. See, it doesn't matter to us whether we are hugely popular or not. We're not watching ratings or checking in with sponsors to make sure everything is running smoothly and the numbers are where they should be. We can question the evidence and the way certain facts are presented, and we can do so without worrying at all about whether that's going to impact on earnings for the fortnight. If you're one of those people that question our motives, I encourage you to think about what the motives, and not just the public statements, but the true underlying motives are of those like Bob who rely on the income generated from this case. For them, there's an absolute reliance on this case representing a wrongful conviction. It simply has to be. So it's a matter of don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. The second point is that, not surprisingly, there's been virtually no discussion by those convinced of Sandra's innocence of the consequences of the laptop login items over the past week. And I say not surprisingly because prior to me releasing the text from my emails with Mr. Devlin, it represented such a huge talking point. And the vast majority of that talk was about how it couldn't possibly be true, how I had to have been lying. And there's good reason, because once it was proven to be true, well, quite simply, there are very few ways to incorporate those facts into the narrative that Sandra has provided. Of course, wildly speculative stories are now offered up about intruders interrogating Jim for login data, which would perhaps necessarily mean that they were in the house between the initial failed password attempt and the successful login. And still, Sandra didn't observe anyone and didn't note that Jim observed anyone. Quite extraordinary in a small house with a line of sight between the master bathroom and the study. We do have Sandra's supposedly recovered memories of the woman wearing the burgundy top, but otherwise, nothing. Nothing about either of them being interrogated for a password or anything similar. The narrative would likely then need to switch to this whole interrogation thing happening after Sandra was supposedly unconscious and tied up and restrained in the closet. But that change then brings a series of other big problems with the narrative. For one, there goes the supposed trigger for Jim fighting back. As we've seen with other elements of this case that are not helpful to Sandra, it's much easier to turn the other way or claim lies or corruption than try and address those facts head on. Fortunately, the justice system doesn't operate that way. It demands a close inspection of all of the facts, and when that approach is taken, it it is my strong view that the case here is clear. And with that, please enjoy the final part of our casual group chat.
And while we're on Sandra's interviews really quick,
Yeah.
I wanted to address her interview with Grace White.
Oh, Gina has thoughts on this.
Let me tell you. So, you know, when Grace White was saying, oh, she's, you know, it took me a while to gain her trust, yada, yada, yada. And then she says, you know, okay, she reluctantly wanted to have an interview. Well, then Sandy gets on and she says, I don't like doing interviews. Something, I'm not going to quote it because it's not exact, but something along the lines of she's nervous to do interviews because she doesn't want her words twisted. Okay, to me, I just don't understand her saying that, because if I didn't kill my husband, you bet your ass, I would be, anybody that would listen to me, I would get on there and be like, look, I didn't murder him, I did not stab my husband, I did not bludgeon him to death, I don't know who the hell did, but somebody needs to get out there and you know, find out what happened. This is what happened that night, that's all I know. Why was she so nervous that her words were going to get twisted? She did that on her own about getting hit on the head in the closet. Because for that to happen the way she says, the intruder would have had to have walked past her, and she would have had to have looked at them. So how did the guy get behind her to tie her up, and she fell forward out of the closet? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, how did that happen? She's twisting her own words. She doesn't need anybody doing it. She's doing it herself.
She did it with the police interview.
Yes, and the police interview is what made me suspicious of her, to be honest.
Yeah. Yes.
And like Ivan said earlier, how he was saying, how everybody's saying she didn't change her story. She did. Changing the times is changing your story. I'm sorry, but anybody, I don't give a shit what you have, anybody can tell the difference between 8 to midnight and 8 to 9 p.m. An hour versus 4 hours of being at a restaurant?
Yeah.
I mean, that just makes no sense. It doesn't
Oh, you
compute.
used the hated phrase,
shit.
Gina.
It makes no sense.
Damn it.
It doesn't make sense.
I mean, but seriously, that's what comes to my, it's nothing about this case makes sense. And
Yeah.
it just boggles my mind that people don't see that and they can explain it away by, well, she doesn't have the concept of time. So, what is she, a 6-year-old? My 6-year-old doesn't understand time. You know, that's, if I tell my son it's 15 minutes, he thinks it's 2 hours away. So, I mean, is that how she is? I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Wait, did somebody say that Jim went to the liquor store earlier in the evening before they went to dinner to buy other
Yes,
liquor? for the
he
day?
did.
Yes.
He did.
So explain to me the significance of going to CVS to set this up.
Well, that never crossed my mind until I read a post last night I think it was actually that Ryan Krause that said.
Yeah, he was the one who raised it, and somebody
Yeah.
posted
Yes.
about it.
That's
Yeah.
actually a really good idea.
Yeah,
Good.
he said she needed I'm thinking in
Excuse
Spanish,
me.
like a timeline, like a time post that she was someplace at a specific
Else.
time.
So that would give her a timestamp of what.
Timestamp. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
It also feeds the narrative that
Yes.
they're going home to have a romantic time in the tub with their drinks. That lends that
anybody
credibility.
And I'm sorry, but anybody like if you're buying alcohol to have mixer, you're gonna think we need mixers. I better get pop at the liquor store too. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I'm
Like,
saying.
That doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up. She used that, or she could have used that to say somebody followed them
Yeah,
home.
I think
Who
that's also
knows?
part of it. She thought I could add the spin that we were followed home from CBS.
In the 2-minute drive
Yes.
on a
Oh
straight
God!
road.
Remember when somebody did
Which she
that?
did. Didn't she say that? And
Yes.
they turned off?
Yes. Yeah.
That was another thing she added later. I do remember somebody was following us home, and I told Jim not to be a jerk, so to speak, because they were riding our butt, and I didn't. You just can't. You just never know nowadays. I don't. Whatever she says.
Yeah.
But she was trying to allude to everybody but her. And that's my problem. When you're innocent, you don't have to do that. You don't have to give, this person could have done it, or this person, or whatever. And, people can say, well, she didn't help her case either because she said Jim had no enemies. Well, who was she going to say? Who was she going to say was his enemy?
Yeah,
you
since
know?
the entire rest of the family and friends are
It's like, he's
he was
great.
like a great guy.
Yes. So who was she going to say, except for a drug dealer who was already considered a bad person in society, or the Liz's uncle thing, which I'm still kind of lost on that part, or the ex-husband that they didn't like. So, it's just the select few people that they've tried to blame, or the guy that wasn't paying his rent on time. It had to do something that was negative about the other person that she's trying to throw into the mix of who could have possibly killed Jim. You know what I mean? Not about...
Yeah, it's always diverting the attention from her towards somebody else.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's just, for all of these things, no, it doesn't. And for all of these things to happen, the stars would have to align perfectly for her.
Yeah. Or like Tim said, she had to be the most unlucky person in the world.
Oh my God,
everything,
yes!
For everything to happen that night to her.
Yes! It's just, I really cannot see how somebody could say that they are 100% without a doubt convinced that she's innocent.
Not if you're looking at the whole thing. No.
No. I'll be honest. When he did the very first episode, okay, and he was explaining, which by the way he got many facts wrong about that night.
Yep.
I found out later, but when he was explaining her being trapped in the closet, and then she has all these medical issues, and she woke up, in a fog, not understanding what's going on. She was not delusional, but you know what I mean. Whatever. Okay.
Yes.
I thought, how the hell could she have done this? This is absolutely crazy. And honestly, if I hadn't done a little bit of research on my own, I probably would still be following him, And after that police interview, and I actually watched it, I was like, okay, well, something's not right here. Something doesn't feel right with me. And I know how a lot of people feel about polygraphs and that sort of thing, but that bothered me. Her excuse bothered me.
Well, come on. The polygraph she took on her own was still inconclusive. So it's not like giving it time made it any better.
And sorry, but she was too cold and she was nervous. Who first of all, who isn't nervous if they're going to be taking a polygraph?
Seriously.
Who isn't nervous? Who wouldn't be nervous?
Yes.
And I know that, she was smart to not do one. She was smart. It was smart of her not to do it. I agree. But her not willing to try and help the situation, that is what bothered me. Because I know if I didn't do it, if I was 100% sure that I did not commit this murder, I 100% would have taken that polygraph. Because
and here's the thing. She, for 2 years or whatever after, while they're not arresting her yet, if I had done this, I'd have been at that station every day bugging those detectives.
Absolutely. And what did she do instead? She went on a month-long getaway to Europe. So, I mean, it's just...
Well, it's the same thing about the podcast. It's the same thing about the podcast, and that's why we wanted to put the transcripts out. I mean, if she's innocent, why won't you put the whole documentary out for people to read and to judge by themselves that, oh yeah, she didn't do it. It's the same thing. I mean, they've been hiding things and twisting things right from the beginning. So it raises red flags all over the place.
Well, the biggest red flag, too, is when Bob said he was locked and loaded without having any documents. Where would he have gotten his info from? He said he had a few, a couple.
Yeah.
But where is he getting his information from then before this that she is 100% innocent? Who is feeding him that information?
Liz.
Exactly. Why would she want her mother to be in prison? I mean, I get it. You know what? I'll be honest with you. If I may have had even the slightest inkling that my mother killed my father, I would still not want my mother in prison. I wouldn't. I would want my mom with me. I mean, or vice versa. I mean, who would want to lose both their parents? So I'm not blaming her. I'm just saying he's getting her information from someone who is 100% biased. Mm-hmm. And I know she's saying she wouldn't be and whatnot, but that's not true. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. It's not
That's
true.
why people don't trust like mothers that testify for their children, because of course they're going to protect them. They're
exactly. Yep. And it's just it's hard because I feel really bad for Jim. I do. This poor man, I can't even imagine what he went through.
The thing is that right now everything is so twisted. I have no idea how they're gonna untwist the whole thing. Because
we don't know what. Yeah.
Bob is not backing up. I mean, like Sam said. I mean, he could have said, "Okay, yeah, this is wrong. This is right," and he hasn't addressed anything that has been proven wrong. Anything, nothing. So I don't know how this. There's no way to make it better now.
I mean, look at the cases before, like Kenny Snow. I feel so bad for that guy. Like that was like the second season. And I was hoping, to get more updates on him and to see what's going on. And same thing with George Powell. Same thing with
Kiel Gove?
The Kiel Gove murder. Yes. I wanted.
I can't remember the guy's name, but I remember her name.
I can't either, but I remember her name. Yes. That poor woman too.
Has he ever? I haven't heard all of his cases, but has he ever, besides the Ed Yates case, finished? I mean, never gone on all of his pauses and everything. Has he ever finished like a case?
No.
Or he always pauses in the middle?
He kind of will just be like, that's all we have.
Yeah, we've come to the end of what we can accomplish and blah, blah. Well,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to know, I wanted to see if there was more to things. You know what I mean? Instead of giving us the story. Because that's pretty much what it is. It's giving us the story.
Yeah.
And
there's no closure.
No, there's not.
And the only case that the Ed Yates F.A.'s case, I mean, I don't think he had anything to do with it.
Of course
he had
didn't.
a great parole lawyer.
Yes, he had a great parole lawyer.
Yeah.
And everybody said he was going to be up for parole, and he was probably going to make it because he was a good inmate. He's shown, well, what they say is, I don't know if they said he's shown no remorse or, whatever, because he's still a convicted felon. He's still convicted of her murder. He's not exonerated. So that's
and
all
he was picked up by the Innocence Project, and I do give the Innocence Project some credit. I don't think that they waste their time on cases that don't deserve it.
No.
I could be wrong. I want to ask Nicole one question. It's burning in my brain. Nicole, as a medical professional, when you see Sandra's wraparound bruise, can you find a reason for her to have that and she's innocent? How would she get that if there were intruders in the house and things happened the way she says they happened? Nicole, you talked about that with your husband?
Yeah. I mean, I think that if she's innocent, that she has that, then maybe she did slip and fall and was grabbed in a different way.
She says it didn't happen when she slipped and fell.
Right.
So that's a different arm.
I know.
Yeah.
But I don't buy it. I don't know.
Is it possible that intruders would have hurt her at that spot?
They could.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But she says she wasn't struggling with them. She was passed out. It could still happen even if she wasn't struggling?
Sure.
Okay.
I suppose it could. If you grab anyone hard enough, whether they're struggling or not, you're going to leave a bruise. Okay. It just seems less likely if she's not struggling that they're going to feel the need to grab her that hard.
Right.
If she's
maybe
unconscious.
They had to manipulate her to get her into that position to tie her.
Well,
maybe I think the story about Jim grabbing her in the jacuzzi. I think she was coming up with that on the fly to try and explain that bruise. She probably didn't expect that the bruise was going to be seen, and then she got herself a little bit trapped with that because it's so unlikely that he'd grab her right arm when she's trying to get out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she was coming up with that. But then you think, why would she come up with a story like that? It's only because it can be traced back to Jim that she says it.
He can't talk.
That's right.
And you know what else, Sam, too, about that? Remember, she didn't pull her sleeve all the way up at first.
No, she didn't.
She pulled it halfway up. And they were like, no, pull it all the way up.
Yeah.
She was more concerned about the wrists and the ankles than the arms.
You didn't even take a picture of my ankles.
That's right. Yeah, she didn't expect it to go to other things. It's the same with the photos that you see where she's turning her head to block that right eye, and the hair's pulled over it. And if these were genuine injuries from an intruder, something she wasn't trying to hide, she wouldn't be hiding them. She'd be, she'd be pulling the sleeve all the way up. She'd be keeping her head straight on.
Look at my eye. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You'd be doing all of that. It's rather than focusing on wrists and ankles, which corroborate your story of being tied, rather than anything to do with being hit. It's odd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And about the autopsy, so there's been speculation about bruising on Jim's ankles from the telephone cord.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not by any means, I am far, far from an expert on any of that. I'm not a medical examiner, nothing like that. But the way I took the marks on his ankles, I took that as being from lividity. And I actually, we tried to confirm that, and that's pretty much what they said. It was from lividity, not bruising, because they're trying to say that there's bruising on his ankles, which would in fact corroborate he was tied up when he was being attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that it just doesn't look that way. And if under the plastic bag that was wrapped around in it with the binding, there's blood drops under that bag. So that bag, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's blood drops under that bag, wouldn't you assume that bag wasn't there like that when he was getting stabbed? That's the way
bag was probably something that it got tangled up in his feet as he was moving or falling, and then it just got left there when she wrapped the cord around his ankles.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. That is the way I take it. I do not take that as anything because honestly, if an intruder is tying you up, they're just going to leave a bag tied up like that with you.
Yeah,
you know
they're just going to shove it to the side. If you're sitting in a chair, they're not going to wrap the bag around your ankles.
Right, exactly. So that whole spiel about bruising and the bag, I think that bag is a red herring, to be honest. I don't think it means anything at all.
I don't either. And there's just no evidence that it means much of anything except that it was there when she wrapped the cord around his ankles.
So thank you all very much for the talk about the Melgar case. And thank you for starting this project, because I was just feeling very alone in the world, thinking I was the only person who had questions. And thankfully you posted all the documents that helped me come to some answers, which I would not have been able to do without you taking the time and the effort to give us everything to make our own decisions in our own minds. And in the end, if someone thinks that Sandy is innocent and wants to put their time and attention in that effort, that's fine. I'm just grateful that we have all of the information and the ability to talk about it. So thank you.
Thank you, Sam, Atty, and Ivan. I appreciate you guys inviting me on here, and I had fun talking with you guys. And everything Danielle said, keep up doing what you're doing. Sam, I think your podcast is awesome. I really love that you address things that people don't want to talk about and they don't want to hear it, but you're putting it out there anyway, and I think it's awesome. So thank you. Keep doing what you guys do. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, I think that you guys are doing a great job, Addie, Sam, Ivan. You're not getting anything out of this but a lot of grief, and nobody wins, like Addie says. And if it comes to be something else, I'll be the first person to say that I was wrong. I just need to see some more evidence to that, a little bit more of a coherent narrative, and a little bit less of twisting of everything, and being able to see both sides. And I will 100% recant everything if it turned out that it was. I've been wrong before, not afraid to admit it. I just don't really see it here, and I feel like there's not enough people that are sticking up for the people that really need it. So thank you for giving us the platform to do so.
I will just say thank you guys for inviting us all on. This has been great, and I really appreciate the fact that you put out the podcast and the website and you host the group. It gives us all a chance to discuss it in a way that we weren't allowed to on other platforms, and it's really appreciated, and I just hope you guys know how much we all appreciate it. So thanks.
Well, hey, this is great. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on. I have to go. I'm freezing.
That's a good goodbye. That's a good goodbye. Yes. I'm freezing. I have to go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, guys. You've all been great. I hope we do this again, and I hope that anyone listening, this is not an attack on you. This is a discussion, and I hope you join us in the group and let's discuss together. And I'm signing off.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being a part of this. It's been a wonderful discussion, and I think there's real value in hearing what everyone has to say in spoken word rather than just reading our thoughts via comments on the Facebook page. We are all real people going by our real names, and we all realise that participating in something like this opens us up to attacks, but the important thing is we are sharing our views, and I think it's becoming increasingly obvious that we are not in a minority in having those views. The more attention that is placed on this case, the more the case is considered objectively, independently and without bias, the more it seems to confirm Sandra's guilt. Whether it's the laptop logins, the Reddit posts, the 32-inch TV, the location of the pillow sham closest to the closet door, the online tool reviews Jim completed, a closer analysis of each of the rooms, and the list goes on and on. Each of those points highlights how crowdsourcing something of this type is somewhat of a double-edged sword if you view it purely with the purpose being to find a wrongful conviction. It of course has the potential to do that, and in a wrongful conviction situation I think it's very possible to achieve, but where the conviction is just, a close examination of the evidence by a large group of people can have the outcome that we are seeing here, confirming that it was just and that the conviction was entirely valid. So thanks everyone, and I look forward to us doing this again in the very near future. Thank you for joining us this week. We look forward to you joining us next week on Truth is Justice as we continue to set the record straight.